Every kid in the United States normally takes an SAT prep. So have I already taken a class of this? Yes. And have I taught a class of this before? Yes, as well. So it shouldn't be too hard, and it should be easy enough to understand. All right, let's continue on to the actual subject at hand, which is SAT prep. All right, so here's the big part about SATs. It's a test that a lot of people in America don't really find to be that fun. And it's a kind of hard test, but then again, we're going to make it so it's nice and easy on everybody. The SATs itself is a scholastic achievement test that tests what you should know, not exactly what you do know. And that's the hard part about it. It assumes you know what it's going to test you on. That doesn't mean you're going to know it, but that's okay. There are actually quite a few tricks that you can do during the test to make it easier on yourself. And also there's a few other guidelines and little secrets for you to know about it to make it easier on you as well. So don't let it overwhelm you, because it's not that hard of a test. It's just long for no reason. Most colleges are going to run the SATs. We also have what's called the ACT, which is a test that tests you on what you do know. Most colleges will take both. Bigger colleges, a lot of the international ones, will only take the SAT because it is a what's the word I'm looking for? It is a premier type test. It's a very strict, and it's a very overused test, so that everyone now is very used to it. So that's why a lot of colleges still use it to this day. The big part of it is that you have to know, this is important, that you have to know really how to dissect sentences. If you don't, that's a problem. We'll have to work on that. You also have to be able to devise and be able to pick out information, which are context clues from passages. That again is very important, because they're going to try to trip you up. The SATs is notorious about tripping people up and trying to get them to choose the wrong answer rather than looking for the right. That's where we practice. That's where a lot of practice really does make perfect. In the SATs, you actually have, for critical reading, which is context clues, you have about 67 questions or so. Not a lot, but it is a lot when you look at it. Some will be what's called sentence completion. Now, if I had a picture, it'd show up on the screen, and I believe there's a picture on the screen. I just can't make it bigger, and I apologize. But those would actually be sentence completion questions that we could look at. How it works is, in sentence completion, it will remove 2 words from the sentence, and you have to put in those two words. The problem comes is that if you don't know the vocabulary that it's using, you're going to have a bad time. That's why vocabulary, hopefully we will be incorporating some vocabulary into these lessons. That way you get a nice bit of vocabulary to know and to study with. Also, it's good to know that just to better your English vocabulary to begin with. But as I said, it will remove 2 words. If you don't know the vocabulary, that's a problem. We'll work on it. If you do, it's still going to try to trip you up, because a lot of the words will be similar. And that's where, again, the test tries to trip you up. It will use similar words that have very close meanings, but the meanings differ very, very slightly. And in those meanings is where you find the correct answer. And that is where we have to know the words in the sentence itself. What is the sentence trying to say? What does it mean? What is the message it's trying to convey? If we can pick that out, and if we can decide really what it's trying to say, we can pick out the correct words. Very simple, and it's very easy, but it's still going to take practice, and that's what this course is about. So as I said, there's about 67 critical reading questions, 19 being sentence completion, and then 48 being passage-based reading. What that means is you're going to get a bunch of paragraphs. I know, fun. And in those paragraphs, you're going to have to pick out whatever it's trying to get you to do. Sometimes it's going to ask you what the meaning of the passage is. Sometimes it's going to ask you to pick out what's going to happen next. Sometimes it's going to ask you just context clues. What could this mean? What do they mean by this sentence? I'll work on that. It's important and it's hard. It's going to seem easy, but it's hard because it's, again, going to try to trip you up. And with the class, we'll actually find, and we'll talk about those tips and those tricks to where it can't do that. And so we'll do better onto that. I promise to that. All right. So 67 critical reading or context clues. You'll then also have about 49 or so, about 49 questions, I guess, somewhere in there, of writing. And then you actually have to write an essay. When we actually get, when we get to the writing itself, then that's a couple days of work on its own. Writing is not easy. They're going to look for very specific criteria in your writing. If it's not there, you're not going to get a good grade. Plain and simple, and I promise you that. And it's not going to tell you, oh, well, maybe you should write like this. No. It's, again, you should know. And that's what we're going to tackle when we get to the writing section. In the writing itself, you have about 18 questions that will be about sentence errors. This is going to be fun. And the reason why. The sentence errors itself, you're talking about, does the sentence make sense? Is it a complete sentence? Is it incomplete? Is it phrase? Is it an incomplete phrase? Is it a dependent clause, an independent clause? Why is it dependent? Because if it's dependent, then it's wrong because you have to have an independent with it. These are the type of errors that they may look for. This is what we have to know. You'll have to improve sentences. That means you have to make them correct or make them better. And it's going to ask you, how can you make this better? What word would sound better here? Again, vocabulary. I would tell you right now, if you can, when you can, that is, definitive. If we mean by definitive, are we talking about that we're actually being precise? And I think I'm being precise, I hope. When it talks about improving sentences, this is where vocabulary comes back into effect. This is where we are going to improve, and we're going to make it better, and we're going to get those grades we want to get. Yes? Yes. With the vocabulary to make the sentences better, it's going to ask you to put in the better words. Those better words are what we need to know, and we're going to know. Okay? So what it comes down to is it's going to probably ask you, what word can you put into the sentence to make the sentence better? And if we know the word, and it's going to give you 4 or 5 answers. I believe it's 5, if I'm not mistaken. And in those 5, there's going to be a lot of words that are going to be almost identical. We have to know what those words mean. We have to be able to pick out the words that do not belong there, and then we can narrow it down. And that's one of the big tricks that we're going to really practice during this course. We're going to practice being able to eliminate words, or eliminate choices for that matter, so then we can narrow it down to maybe 2 or 3. 2 or 3. There we go. Camera's backwards. Apologies. That's important. That is one of the biggest tricks that we're going to learn and practice, is narrowing down and taking out erroneous questions and answers, because sometimes you don't need these. Some of the answers are not going to make any sense. Take them out. There's no reason to stress yourself out over 5 answers when you can wait. There you go. 5 answers. So we can bring it down to maybe 2 answers or 3 answers. So those improving those sentences come with vocabulary. There are SAT vocabulary boxes. In the subsequent lessons, we will be using vocabulary. Hopefully, we're going to get some words in there, and you can write these words down. And I stress so much to you to write these words down when they come up on the screen, because they're going to help. They helped me when I took my SATs and when I did SAT prep. They helped my English students over in the high school that I was teaching at, because that helped them. And we saw it every day